No, we don't want to bail them out, and I think there's a way. Massive government intervention, to prevent a Category 4 financial meltdown from becoming a full-blown Category 5 financial meltdown. That's what we want. But to package that intervention as a blank check, no questions asked, no transparency, with a get-out-of-jail-free card for everybody who is trusted with $700 billion and counting of taxpayer dollars to go in and buy up these, trash assets of these, institutions that have profited greatly and endangered us all. That kind of bailout is not the bailout we need. I mean, that was the title of Jamie Grauber's thesis, this is a bailout we don't need. He's not saying we don't need massive intervention. He's saying, no, this is the kind of massive intervention we do not need. And if you think about it, it basically is the kind of intervention that comes from it comes from the Wall Street mindset, which is exactly the mind it did come from. It came from, from Paulson's idea of, oh my God, we have a crisis on Wall Street. What should we do?
I don't know whether he called his fellow Wall Street CEOs and asked them to tell him, or whether he, as one of them, basically already thought this. But the answer they came to is, well, we need the taxpayer to come in here and pay us good cash for all the trashy assets on our books. And then we need the taxpayer to just let us go about back to our business as usual. That's what he proposed. And actually, if you wanted to, we could talk about some of the details of what he's proposed, which is even more sort of outrageous in terms of how it would actually have played out.
I won't stop you. Go on.
Hopefully that approach is being turned around.
Tell us about some of those more outrageous approaches.
Better approaches, or the outrageous details?
Give us the outrageous details, because I think our listeners need to know how insiders have just hijacked our economy and our government.
Right. Ordinarily, when the taxpayer and the ordinary American is being bamboozled, it's done in a form where you have to read, 700 pages of reports about, from the 9/11 Commission or something.
Or 700 billion.
Well, this time they've made it remarkably easy. 851 words. That's less than 3 pages is what Paulson can. That was his plan, his proposal, which he presented and handed to the leaders of the House Banking and Senate Banking Committee, basically late last week. And so that's something that's online, and people should get a hold of it. If anybody reads that, I think that their outrage will be even greater. The item that I would pick on, particularly, is Section 2, called Purchases of Mortgage-Related Assets, and it's point number 2. And I'll just read it. It says, I want you to authorize me, the Secretary of the Treasury, to enter into contracts, including contracts for services from non-government employees. That would be hiring Wall Street firms to do Treasury's work in this reverse auction market, purchasing of these assets that he's talking about. Entering into contracts, including contracts for services, without regard to any other provision of law regarding public contracts. That basically is a get-out-of-jail-free card for the operation of this massive purchasing of financial instruments that basically are the junk that's on the books of these companies. Now, the way a reverse auction would work, and I'm going to describe this, but I want to make clear, I hope that the Democratic leadership in Congress basically manages to eliminate this entire part of whatever bailout does take place. This isn't the way it has to be done. It's never been done this way before. Paul Krugman explained this very well in some columns last week. This kind of reverse auction thing they've come with isn't the normal way of doing business. Here's what it would actually consist of. The Treasury would say, we have $700 billion. We're interested in buying bad debt that's on the books of major Wall Street banks and financial institutions. Come to our auction, and you bring what you want to get rid of, what you want to sell to us, and you quote us a price. Then we will buy the worst of the stuff, and we will pay you think about how this actually operates. If we were talking about an estate auction, the way an estate auction works is that somebody has a bunch of furniture. They say, we're going to have an estate auction. People come and buy it. A reverse estate auction would be, I have a lot of money, and I want you to come with your furniture and offer your furniture for sale. Well, in that case, when I'm using my money to buy this furniture, I have a pretty good idea of how valuable I figure the furniture is for me. And if I make a mistake and I overpay, it's going to hurt me. I'm the one who's hurt. Well, in this auction, for these kinds of assets, the first problem is nobody knows what these things are really worth. It's actually very, very, very difficult to figure out what they're really worth. So there's the first problem. Figuring out what's a reasonable price. Is the taxpayer getting taken for a ride, buying, trash for cash, as Krugman put it? It's very difficult to figure out. Well, who is going to do the buying? Well, they're going to basically hire people from outside the government who are completely exonerated from any sort of rules about conflict of interest to come in and buy from the Sharpies who are going to come from these companies who have a better idea of what they're worth and what they're not worth. I mean, this is a situation that is just a disaster. It would lead to incredible corruption. The people who were buying for the government would have every incentive to basically overpay and then take a job 6 months later with the firm they overpaid to.
That's nothing new, though, is it, Dr. Hamill?
This is an unthinkable thing that the taxpayers should hope is not permitted to happen to them.
What do you think of William Gross's proposal at PIMCO to take his all his Wunderkunde at PIMCO and all his algorithms and analytics and quote unquote fairly price this stuff for reverse auction?
I don't think it can be done.
All right. Yeah,
I simply don't think I don't think there's a mathematical algorithm that can simply do this.
Well, there was a big article on the front page of yesterday's New York Times about his proposal, and to be honest with you, I just thought it was spin. I thought he was put up to this. They made him seem like he was some big patriot, that he was going to pro bono